those who were involved in making it come to life. Join us as we go behind the door.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Door with the Grey Rooms podcast. Today we are discussing Season 2, Episode 9, Shadows and Teeth, written by Baylea Hart. Today, to discuss the story, we have with us the author, Baylea Hart.
Hi, hello.
We have with us the head of the art department and the visual direction of the podcast, Cassie Pertiet.
Hi, guys.
And we have the audio engineer, sound designer, and executive producer all rolled into one. Jeez, that was hard. Jason Wilson.
Great, that's really good job. You read it off the card properly, so thank you ever so much. I'll give you more to say next time. No worries.
I'm getting paid, thank God.
Email is coming.
And I am the social media and Patreon manager, Brooks Bigley. Well, hi. Wow. Baylea, how are you today?
Pretty good.
Your story just released. How did you like it? Tell us.
It was very surreal. I've never had anything done in audio form before, so listening to it back was very strange, but I loved it.
Okay, so this was your first go-around with a story being produced by a podcast. Awesome. So did you see kind of what you had in your head, to write the story? Did you just kind of see that coming to fruition through the audio? Like how did it all make you feel?
Well, it's been a while since I wrote it, so a lot of the time I was sort of in the story as if I was listening to any of the other stories. I've listened to the whole season so far. Mm-hmm. So I kept dipping in and out, and now and then I'll go, oh, I remember writing that. But other times I would just be invested in the whole story.
Right. So it was almost kind of like new to you, almost in a way.
Yeah, kind of.
Or like rewatching a movie that you haven't seen in a very long time.
Yeah. But obviously I'm English, so listening to it all in a different accent as well was very interesting.
That's true, yeah. So yeah, you to you, we're the ones with the accents. We talk about this a lot on the show. I love that. Does that change anything for you, or did it make you think it was like in a different setting from what you originally felt, or did we lose anything in the translation there, or did it all come across just right?
I think it all came across. I think I probably should have used some different swear words. Some of the swear words were a bit strange. But no, it was very well done, and I loved listening to it.
That's awesome. So Thank you. What I always ask this, what inspired you? So one day there was not this story, and then you had the seed idea, and then you continued with it until you finished writing it. What inspired all of that?
I found myself wanting to submit. So I sat down one afternoon and wrote a list of very ordinary scenarios that I could destroy and twist somehow. So I had things like dentists and buying a house, and adopting a pet was on there.
A dentist would be terrifying.
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't had a good dentist story yet. Interesting. Season 3, Baylea, Season 3.
Yes.
So you went with the animal aspect, basically. You went with the adopting a pet idea.
Yeah, I'd recently got myself a cat, so it all timed up quite nicely.
Well, after this story, it makes sense. I want a cat too.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of people are going to avoid dogs.
Yeah, are you giving the cats some side eye now, and making sure that they're staying in their half of the corner and not trying to take over your body and things like that?
Not smiling at me.
There you go. I have some more questions about the story, like the plot behind the story, but I want to wait a little bit to get into that. So you came up with the idea, okay, setting, pet adoption. How did you conceive this idea, basically, of I don't want to say yet that they switched identities or anything, but definitely David is in the dog now. So how did you ultimately come up with that to end up being what's going on?
I wanted to do something quite like a Twilight Zone episode. I remember watching one, I think it was Twilight Zone, where a man slowly turned into a bee. And I wanted to have some sort of twist that was kind of like that. And I have always wanted to adopt a dog. I've loved dogs. So I'm very much like Laura in the story. So I wanted to sort of explore it from a different angle and explore someone who maybe wasn't too keen on pets, and things just sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah, interesting how you could tell right off the bat, David, it's not that he didn't like pets, but you could see he was just very indifferent, I guess, to pets, but wanted to please Laura. I mean, Laura was clearly the dog lover in the situation. So it was good that you kind of had that juxtaposition there. I love how, like, I'm a dog lover too. I've had dogs in the past, and there's just this way that you can like look at your dog, or you're a cat too. I've never had a cat, but you can look at your animal and you can look at them in the eyes, and sometimes you can just feel a reciprocation of, I don't know, like an unspoken communication. And you freaked me out because I've never looked a dog in its eyes, and the horror story that you have created now, I will now forever remember looking into any dog's eyes. Like, oh my God, is he going to suck my consciousness into him? I need to run away from this dog. Like, you did a really good job at picking something so ordinary, so regular in our life, and then turning it into just a scary horror thing. You did a great job. Love it.
Yeah. Again, that's why I have a cat. He's a good guy.
Have you ever had a dog, Bayley?
I've grown up with dogs, so until I moved out on my own, I've always had dogs. So
okay, you're quite familiar with them then.
Yeah, so I've spent my whole childhood sort of speaking to dogs as if they knew what I was saying. So
I think that all dog lovers do that. Yeah,
I wanted to boost that up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And Jason, you really, to me, in terms of, I wish I knew a different word other than just calling it sound effects, but the ambiance, the effects in general, having those headphones on, I felt this dog walking around me and poking its nose at things. Like, if you are a dog lover or you've had a dog, you will instantly feel nostalgic towards any dog you've ever loved or owned by listening to this story, at least in that beginning part. When they're going to the pet orphanage, and great job producing that. How did you do that, Jason? That particular scene with the dogs in the beginning.
Well, I just like Bayley, I've been a dog owner my entire life, and until I was old enough to realize that, boy, they're a lot of work, and I don't like carrying around a little bag and picking poop up off the ground, and that's just just little things like that. And so I got a cat because, well, my wife is a cat person, and she said, we're getting a cat. I said, all right, fine, whatever, I don't care. And this cat is essentially a dog. He wants you to pet and touch him and all that kind of weird stuff. But I've gone to I've gone to the pound. I've gone to the dog shelters and all that kind of stuff to rescue dogs or buy puppies. And I always knew, I could remember what it was like when I would walk in there, the smells, the sounds, everything else like that. And so I just drew from, childhood memories, and that's all it was. And then, of course, I grew up with a lot of hardwood floors, and the dogs always have their nails hitting the wood. So if you're going to have a dog moving around, you have to have that sound for sure. And panting, because dogs are always out of breath.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's me. I'm just overweight. So.
And it takes a former dog owner or current dog owner, I think, to even realize that, to produce that scene. So yeah, you did a very commendable job. I think anyone else would have been like let's say you had to do a scene with an elephant. You're not used to dealing with elephants, so you might not structure the sound exactly convincingly enough. Maybe. I don't know. You're a producer. You can do what you want. But man, that I kept opening my eyes. Where's the dog? Where's the dog? While I was listening to the episode the first time. So it was a great intro into it. Yeah. Excellent. Baylea, how long have you been writing? Like, how long have you write other stories, other horror, other genres? Like, what's your deal?
Professionally, I went to university to study creative writing, so it's been since then. I've written a novel, I've written a short film, so I've done bits and pieces here and there.
Wow.
But
Okay.
I've been writing since I was 7, maybe. I remember being in school and making my own little book that I'd stapled together about it was called The Birthday Man, and it was a man who killed children on their birthdays. So
Oh, wow.
What?
I started young.
So
To
did you
just a regular
submit that story?
Yeah, season 3. Hello.
And I drew all the pictures myself, and I put it on a little bookcase in my in my school.
So, how old did you say that you were when you did that?
I was 7 years old, and around about a couple of years later, my parents and my grandmother were letting me read Stephen King books. So I started
Start
very
them
young.
early.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
awesome. Yes, absolutely. There are a couple of the more safer no sleep podcast episodes that I'll let my daughter listen to. Like, we'll listen to some of the stories. You can do it. You can find them. There's a couple there that are okay to let the kids kind of have their first foray into horror. So that's awesome. Good for your parents. Yay.
Yeah, I love your parents.
Yeah. What kind of other things do you write, Baylea?
It's usually horror. I enjoy character-based horror, if that makes sense. So I enjoy putting people in horrific situations and seeing how someone would deal with that. That's the sort of
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
Those are the
horror
best
I
kinds.
Well, and you certainly did that with this story. I mean, I couldn't feel like, so listening through, I couldn't really play. Sometimes I feel like I'd be like, oh, I know where this is going to end up, or, oh, that was a pleasant twist to what I thought would happen, but I could not make out what was going to happen. So it was kind of like this is really building towards something that's really going to just completely knock them down. And once I kind of realized, and I love to maybe talk more about the lore of this all. I feel like there's a lore behind your story. But once I realized that, like, Dee Dee the dog took David's consciousness into the dog's body, does that mean that whatever the dog consciousness that was there is now in David's body? And if Dee Dee keeps going back to the orphanage, is it bringing back these human souls to the, like... There's a lot of cool stuff here that you can get into. You've done a great job at keeping it open, kind of, but without leaving unresolved, points. Can you share any of that? Is there anything else to it? Did you have anything planned in the background of what the plot, anything like that?
The way I saw it was Dee Dee being returned all this time was because people were picking up on his techniques and sending him back before he could complete what he set out to do. And in my head, most time, all dogs want is love. They want to be loved by their human, and Dee Dee was taking that to the extreme and swapping places with David to receive that love in a more human way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And interesting that Dee Dee only targeted Laura, didn't target both of them. So clearly, Dee Dee's mentality, I guess, is to just, like water going to the egress, just seek out that person that will offer that kind of love.
Yes.
So David was instantly the enemy, and Laura was the friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So David was always the one that Dee Dee was going to be focused on getting rid of.
Mm-hmm, exactly, to replace. Yeah.
Yeah, such a cool story. I remember when I was editing and listening to it, and when I got to the part to where the twist happened, I actually had goosebumps. Because I was like, man, this is so crazy. This is weird. Like, he wakes up as the dog. That's nuts. I was like, this is cool. Yeah, I just really loved how it just, again, it was quick too. It was like, whoop, the turnaround just happened.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is really neat. So
I didn't know until he tried to stand up or
Right.
put his arms out, and they weren't arms; they were dog legs.
Yep. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, that'd be very freaky. Cassie, how did you like listening? Or we read the stories first, and then you make the artwork. How did you determine the way that you designed the episode artwork based on what you were reading into the story?
Yeah, it's always really interesting, like going through and reading the stories first in order to make the art, because I feel like I want to make sure that whatever I'm making for you guys is, so engaging for what the story is. And I know this one in particular is like I wanted to capture that really quick surprise of like, here's this this gentle dog, and then all of a sudden he just he snaps, he bares his teeth, he growls, he's really in your face, and I kind of wanted to deliver that moment. But I love going through and being able to read these stories and really try to get that moment of surprise or that moment of shock, and really deliver on what the story is. So I love the story. I thought it was a great one.
Yeah, and I had to listen. Let me think. Today was maybe the 5th time I've listened to the episode all the way through, because I feel like time and time again, I feel like a lot of the authors, especially for season 2 now, doing a lot of nice, interesting foreshadowing here and there, and you don't pick up on certain things until the 2nd or the 3rd time through. I completely missed about Dee Dee going back and then thinking, oh, he's going to take this consciousness back with him to the pet orphanage. Let's say if they were returning Dee Dee, because he's like, there's only one David now, or there can only be one David. I didn't think about that whole concept of maybe the pet orphanage owner being in on some soul collector type thing until maybe the 3rd time I listened to it, because you have to keep collecting more clues as to the foreshadowing of what's going on. Like the pet orphanage owner called these dogs like her kids, right, Bailey? What was they're parts of her.
The pet owner, in my head, definitely knows what Dee Dee is and what Dee Dee wants to do. It wasn't so much of a soul collecting thing, more of a sort of a monster pet shop owner. So she was aware of this weird thing, and she was just going to let it happen.
Monster pet shop owner.
And it's so perfectly subtle.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's so perfectly subtle. I didn't pick up on it the first time. So then the 2nd time, I'm like, oh my gosh, this became more sinister. Oh my gosh, I just figured it out. Yeah, lots of fun to listen to this. Definitely.
5 times. Let me tell you how many times I've listened to this story.
That's true. You and JM.
Yeah.
Going over that music over and over again.
Right. You can't never leave JM. The production work that I do is one thing, but you know what? The soul of the story really is when JM drops some music in there. So, and I thought he did a great job on the music in this too. So,
yeah, sets the mood and the tone very well. Very much so. Bailey, like, what was like your favorite? Do you have like any favorite point in the story or like a unique moment in the story? Anything that was your favorite at all? Anything that stood out to you?
I really liked the smiling part. That part stood out for me. But the whole thing with just how everything entwined together, the music, the Foley, even the artwork. I love the artwork. It was all of it combined that I just loved.
That's right. Everybody, the gray rooms, it's a package deal. So
yes,
book your agent now.
We're like Voltron. We connect and we deliver. So you, now going back to horror, you said that you appreciate, you write. Of course, you appreciate it. You write horror. That you said like character. What did you say? You called it character horror, or?
Yes, yeah, character horror.
Is that like a genre, or is just kind of how you're describing it? Because I like what you're saying. I like that too, where it involves a person overcoming something that's so astronomically out of the ordinary. It's like speculative fiction. I'm
not sure if it's an. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to ask, like, if it was more specific to speculative in terms of like, this is something that could possibly really happen, or is it more like fantastical horror that you like, that's like, oh, then, the aliens showed up and then they enslaved half of humanity, the big type horror, versus like the I don't think my mother is my mother today and I'm going to investigate what's going on, that kind of subtle horror?
I much prefer the subtle type of horror. I do enjoy the bigger horror, and I think it depends on the story. Some stories I think need to have that big overarching story and background to it. But the subtle horror is always a horror that stays with me more. I find it sinks into your skin a little bit more. Yeah. You're thinking about it.
More
you're trying to work
relatable.
out what's happening. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's always that thought of, is this actually horror? Is this actually happening? Is it just in this person's head? And that's always interesting to me as well.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yep.
Although the cliche of like, oh, it's just a mental disorder, that always kind of bums me out when a writer uses that as kind of like the go-to explanation of something. It's always fun to like wonder what it could be, but you never want to make that final or anything.
No, it takes a bit of the punch away from it. I think if you fully say, this is what happened, it was all this.
Right.
It takes the wonder out of it.
Right. Like putting a big spotlight on the monster versus letting the monster kind of lurk in the shadows a little bit. Let your imagination do the rest. Fill in the rest. Yeah. Did you find any challenges in trying to wrap up your story? Were there any challenges where you got stuck, that you couldn't figure out how to get a certain character through something, anything like that when you were writing the story?
Well, this story was a little easier in some ways because I knew how it had to end, and that was that the character had to die. So I had that ending to work towards. So in some ways it was much easier than writing something else because I had that trajectory that I could aim towards. And I'm the sort of writer that likes to plot things out beforehand. So once I've got everything written down, then I can just plow on straight ahead.
Yeah, I imagine it'd be difficult to just sit down and say, I'm going to write a horror story, and then just starting from point A and then just working your way forward. That would probably get very difficult very fast to keep your plot linear and make any kind of sense. Yeah, that would make sense. I've written small things, but I'm not a writer. I don't want to pretend like I am. So I guess I just assume that makes perfect sense to me. You want to have like an outline, a skeleton to follow. But I'm always interested in like, I guess it's the version of like the cutting room floor of like, well, I had this third character, but then I wrote them out, and originally this character was going to do this, but then I realized that this wouldn't work. I like hearing kind of those kind of behind the scenes that the writers like to share. So I was just wondering if you had anything like that with the story. But you seem to really know what you wanted to do to accomplish writing this.
With this story, yes, this one turned out much better than writing something else. I often do have to take out characters, or I completely swap a whole story around. The thing I'm writing at the moment, I've just gone through the whole outline again and done it from scratch. But this one, I knew where I wanted it to go. I knew how I wanted it to start, and it just all flowed very nicely.
That's awesome. Groovy. Well, it turned out amazing. It was a great story, definitely. I feel like it almost remind is the wrong word. I just have a vague remembrance of our season 2. Well, we are still season 2. The episode number 2 for this season, Disconnect. I loved that story of how he kind of lost his life to another human being, and now in this situation our character is losing his life to a dog, but where they're losing their life, but the interesting twist is someone else is now continuing with that life. So I thought that that was a very kind of fun, like, oh, this is like we can say this is another kind of situation, just like that other story that we did this season. It's just fun to have all this canon that we're developing around the Grey Rooms podcast. Because as you know, Samantha Winters now went through what your story is about.
Samantha is a BA, by the way. Holy cow. I love the direction that story went, by the way. Way to go, Mr. Zanke. Yeah, Samantha. That's awesome.
What did you think? Do you follow that, Bayley? What do you think of that?
I've listened to every episode so far, so I'm loving Samantha at the minute. I think it's nice to have such a different look on someone within the Grey Rooms, and seeing how different she is to Raymond is very interesting to follow. And I like how strong and positive she is, which is crazy in that situation.
Yeah, that's my point. That's why I said she's BA. Badass.
She's a badass.
Anybody was wondering. Yeah, because she's like, it's almost unrelenting how just she can face everything with, just an iron fist and a steel jaw. And it's amazing to me. It's a contrast to Raymond last season, who, in all fairness, because of the kind of guy he was just a coward and a big sissy, and Samantha is not. And I truly love this season's narrative, and I love all the stories that we've received this season too, because like you said, Brooks, there's so much building going on with each one of these stories as far as the world, and I'm really enjoying this. It's a lot of fun. I can't wait for the next season.
Wait till we drop the season finale on everybody. Holy moly. Cannot wait. Things are happening, Bayley. Things are happening. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm waiting for each episode.
We are building towards glorious, glorious stuff. Cassie, what was your favorite part of this story versus other stories? We never get you on, Cassie, so it's fun to hear anything now that you can give us as opinions. Sitting
back and enjoying the behind the door episode, so to speak, but there were so many great parts of this story. It's so interesting to hear too from you, Bayley, that it was this creature that was kind of unsuccessful, and that's why he kept being returned. Because I know in my mind I was like, oh man, what if it is where he takes over a new person, and then they're always dropping off the person that he takes over off of the shelter. So those people are just trying to sneak out and get back out of the dog body and into a human body. So I thought that was such an interesting twist, especially with the shopkeeper. And you can just tell in her voice the whole time, just the forbearance on like what's about to happen, and are you really ready for this? Do you think you're really ready to take on this opportunity, this pet? And by the way, his name happens to be David as well. I thought those were just really great little character clips that kind of give you some really heavy, just evil feeling foreshadowing to it. I loved it all.
Include a bunch of links in the show notes.
That was really. I love when Margaret is in it plays a character role in one of our stories, because she just brings just a whole new level of acting ability. And when I saw that she was going to be the one doing those lines, I was like, oh, here we go, buckle down.
Novel, but I'm not sure how soon that will be. Listening to the whole thing, I've started to have a previous in my head imagine her being the same woman in each of the stories.
What's your novel called?
So I've got my own little headcanon going on. Just because she's always playing such
What's it about?
Malicious, sort of sinister characters. It's about a woman in my head who has been left them all in a forest and making her attempt to get back to her home to take revenge on the person who left her there.
We don't need to do that.
It's kind of post-apocalyptic. The forest isn't a very nice place to be, and it's all about her survival and just
I gotta
pure
somehow figure out
rage as she's trying to get back.
That's my kind of story.
Ooh, that sounds intriguing. All right, we're definitely going to include that in the show notes. Awesome.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah, and that's your first novel, you said?
Yes.
Okay, and then you're working on your second novel now. Do you have plans to maybe start submitting, like, have you got that bug now in you that you want to start submitting short stories to any other horror podcasts?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do this again. It's been such an interesting experience, and to see it all come together at the end is just so worth it. And yeah, I would love to do something like this again. I'm always sort of chipping away at short stories, so.
Awesome.
Well,
I hope you got something to us for season 3. Yeah. Yeah, we should make a clause that like returning authors should be allowed to kind of submit stuff outside of submissions, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm making everybody upset now by saying that, but just want to help the people out. No, against corporate policy. And then you could submit to No Sleep Podcast. I'm trying to think of like who else takes stories.
Creepy Pasta and
creepy, right?
Yep, No, Creepy Pasta, Creepy Pod, yeah.
Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, maybe. I'm sure there's. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, but yeah, I'm sure there's lots out there. You need to keep doing this, Bayley. You gotta. You're important to this community. You wrote an excellent story.
Thank you.
Great foreshadowing. I've heard some stories here and there from other podcasts where it's just the typical they're just recycling tropes and they're using the same kind of plot points and characters and monsters, but you definitely turned this on its head and introduced a really cool twist. You got to keep up at this.
Thank you very much.
I was gonna say we don't have an actor with us to ask what they're doing, and we all know what Cassie and Jason are doing.
Tanya and Ewan did a great job. I had never actually worked with them before. This was the first story I had the chance to work with them, and I thought Tanya, holy cow, like that was some delivery right there. Her character felt so real to me.
She's such a natural actor.
Yeah, it felt real. And Ewan did a great job too. I love his narration voice. But I tell you what, Tanya, and boy, give her a Grammy. She walked away.
Yeah, she was amazing. I tried to get her on. It didn't work out, but I really wanted to have her do the show today with us. So just schedules just didn't work out. But her acting is top notch. She's on a lot of different podcasts, and she's got a very, very just natural gift to act out the character that she's embodying.
I can't even tell you as the producer, as somebody who has to engineer the sound of this, having a voice talent that not only delivers the lines but puts a lot of emotion into them, really takes the character into themselves, and then also provides you with so much extra. I got a call. So much.
Tanya offering
extra.
You more.
Well, that's my son's. My son's best friend is FaceTiming him, and so and it's connected to my phone, of course.
Daddy's busy right now.
I didn't have the foresight to turn the dang ringer down, but with Tanya, she also delivered a ton of extra stuff like crying and laughing and just all this extra ambient sound that sometimes I have to physically go out there and find and off of like my sound effects library to fill in. But boy, she provided me this just dictionary of opportunity, and it was wonderful, and she did such a great job. I cannot talk highly enough about her. And Ewan, I don't want to sell Ewan short either, but man, it was a great story. It was a great story, great acting, everything about it was good. It is one of my favorites. It really stood out to me when I was reading it when we were looking through the submissions. So yeah, that was an absolute pleasure to work on it. Truly was.
Yeah, and that artwork again. Whoo-wee. Yeah, I like how you made it pop. You gave it an immediacy, Cassie.
Gotta make it jump out at you.
Exactly, yes, because there's a lot of kinetic energy to that artwork, and I feel like that last part of the story, everything is so sweet and happy until that very ending when David goes to bed and he wakes up and now he's the dog, and everything is just switched instantly, and yeah, so you captured that, I thought, very well in the art. And then Graham did a great job with the that cool color animation stuff that we did on the Twitter. So yeah, the full package yet again for another episode. Thank you, Bayley.
Thank you all for making something amazing.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it took all of us, including you. So yay, we're all awesome. Well, on that note, I wanted to say thank you, Bayley, just in general, for taking your chances with us and submitting a story to us and not knowing us and trusting that we would be able to do something with your written words. Cassie, thank you for always making excellent art for us. Jason,
Yes.
Jason, you're awesome. You just know awesome.
I'm just going to go ahead and give myself another star today on the calendar. Hang on right there.
There you go.
Sunday, Jason got another star. This month's getting pretty full with good stars here. I'm doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Turn 10 of them in and you'll get a prize.
Thanks a lot. I'm thinking of that character from Saturday Night Live. What was it? Stuart Smalley.
Oh, yes.
He'd stand in front of the mirror and he's like,
look what I can do.
Yeah, that's what I have right now. That's me.
That's awesome.
You're welcome for the visual.
Thank you. Oh, so thank you everyone for joining us for discussing Shadows and Teeth, written by Baylea Hart. Bailey, any last words that you want to share with us?
Choose it differently, Brooke. Anything else you would like to say before we conclude this? Any last words, Bailey?
Well, this is a horror podcast. Come on, she's gonna walk the plank when we're done. Yeah.
Suddenly, I can hear a dog growling in the background.
The final countdown. Oh, that was great. Again, another star for me right there. Another star for you. Again, Bailey, thank you ever so much for story. Again, it was an absolute pleasure getting to produce it. I enjoy working with all these wonderful, talented authors and actors and actresses that we somehow, by the grace of Graham, get the opportunity to work with.
It's always Graham.
It's just an absolute, it's a pinch me moment every day I get a script and every time I get to hear everything done. And I get to hear it from JM because he's a master at his craft. And love working with JM. Hale is a gem. Everything she does. Cassie, poor Cassie, and Brooks. Boy, their cell phone bills got to be through the roof because they talk to me all the time and they get a lot out of me.
Time.
Love y'all. You guys are the best. Graham is absolutely wonderful. And everybody listening, got to tell you, we wouldn't and couldn't do this without you. So we all appreciate you for listening and contributing your time and your ears to what and to our passions and our dreams. So getting to work with all of you and getting to put it out there is truly a dream come true. So thanks to all of you.
Yes,
100%. Yes. Well said. Well said. Cassie, do you want to say anything?
Last note though, for all of our listeners, we have a new website up. So
yes,
make sure you go through. Check that out, share, enjoy. You can listen to all of our episodes on the website now. Just enjoy it and leave a comment.
Yeah, I think you're selling yourself short on that there.
Yeah, who designed it?
That is a website that Cassie and Ben had designed, and it is beautiful. I probably spent 2 hours just looking at the front page the day it came out. I was at work when she sent me the text, and I pulled my mail truck over and I sat on the side of the road and I looked at it for probably about 15 minutes and not doing my job. So sorry if your mail was late that day, but yeah, you're selling yourself short. This is an absolutely stunning website. So if you get a chance to grayrooms.com, check it out. It is beautiful. And
give it a look. We've got lots of fun things planned for it in the future. Lots of fun things for people to find and enjoy.
Little Easter eggs.
I was so happy to be able to put it together for you guys. So I'm glad you guys enjoy it.
It's fun. A lot of fun. Have you checked it out yet, Bailey?
No, I'm going to.
Please do.
Right, sales pitch. Another star for me today. Here we go.
Hey, Bailey, you can actually listen to yourself on that you have a story on there. It's on the website. So anyways.
You're going down in history here. The lore.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you all adieu. Please be safe. Wash your hands.
Watch out for dogs.
Watch out for dogs.
Don't touch your face. Watch out for dogs.
Only adopt puppies, not older. Well, no, that's me. Never mind. Don't listen to that. Adopt them.
Maybe. Maybe.
Yes, just not dogs named David. Stay away from those.
Just not for monster shopkeepers. Let's just we'll cut it there.
Yes,
On the side
Margaret
of
is
the
a
fruit, yes.
wonderful lady. If you see her, she's not going to sell you a chair that's going to kill you, sell you a
That's
dog
right.
that's going to steal your soul. I promise she's
Only-
not going to do that.
Only in the graves.
Cool. Thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, have a great night, everyone. Bye.
Join us each week after every episode for another edition of Behind